Uh, Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and those who identify otherwise, for a very first here on the Simsport Racing International YouTube channel, a Sunday sprint race that are actually broadcasted. Very nice, bi-weekly. This will hopefully be. Oliver Anderson, Mr. One of Oliver, behind the cameras, as always, our grandpa Chris Hill, and we are ready for one heck of an exciting race here at Donnington Park Sausage Raceway on this fine evening. The weather guards may throw a little bit of a, shall we say, cloudy sky upon the racetrack this evening, but again, no one knows exactly yet. Surely this will be a good one to tune in to and watch. If you think that the Formula 1 race today was exciting, then wait for this sprint race. It's almost guaranteed to be just as exciting, if not even more exciting, to be perfectly honest with all of you guys out there watching and listening into this wonderful broadcast. But doesn't matter whether it will be raining or not, we actually do have some sort of a track guide in the background lined up that we can have a little bit of a look at as we start the flying lap, or fly over the lap here at the start-finish straight, coming into Red Gate Turn 1. Overtaking opportunities galore around here. And what an old school track. If you run wide, you have a little bit of grass and then some gravel that will try and stop you. Craner curves are the next couple of corners that we're going through. Flat out section. Before we head into ye old hairpin that we can see down here in the bottom of the hill. Very much elevation, so first proper braking zone. We have seen people going wide here multiple times into the gravel traps, being side by side up through turn 6 and over Starkley's bridge. I don't know why it's called a bridge, as I don't see any bridges around. Before we head into McLaren's turn 7 right-hander. Important to get this one right, as if you go left you'll hit a barrier, of course, so getting it right is a good choice. Into Copies, turn 8. This leads on to the back straight, Starkley straight. At the end of the straight, you'll have yet another good overtaking opportunity. One of the better on the track if you can get lined up correctly, because if you can get side by side before the corner, you will force your opponent driver to go wide into some gravel somewhere, or you might have to do it yourself. Through the S's we go. On the flyover, very slow moving. On top of that, small back straight into Melbourne hairpin. Another good overtaking opportunity. They really come galore here at the end of the track. Hard braking into first gear. Some drivers taking it second, but most likely we'll see a lot of first gear action through here. Small straight after that, hard acceleration zone before hard braking zone once again in I'm not going to try and pronounce that. Gardred's corner, the sausage corner we shall call it. Turn 11 before we head back onto the start finish straight. Difficult getting into the pit lane entry at this track, as it does happen just out of turn 11, the sausage hairpin. You do have to be a little bit cautious of where you place your car if you want to go into that pit entry, because if you're way too wide, you'll actually have to slow down on the racing line to try and get your car braked and turned in. So we might see a car or two being caught out a little bit there in the race, but again, we will have to wait and see. Except for this race, we do have another couple of races going on, or championships going on here on the SSRI YouTube channel. This is the calendar for what we are about to witness tonight. Race 1. Oh, it's actually a weekly series. Who would have thought? Oh, wait, it's actually race 2, this one. Damn, have we already raced? Damn, I wasn't notified about that. That doesn't matter. I probably was notified about it, but I wasn't around. Race 2 of the championship here at the Donnington Park. 90 minutes of racing this evening. This great Sunday evening before we head to Barcelona next week for a 60... No, sorry, on the 27th. It's not next week, apparently. It's in 2 weeks. Where we head to Barcelona for a 60-minute race that surely will be interesting as well. Followed up by the 75 minutes of Kyalami, a track that we have seen quite a few races at over the last couple of seasons on this channel, and what a track to go racing at. It's almost guaranteed action from start to finish before we finish the Sunday Championship at the Circuit of the Americas, the wonderful COTA. Some drivers love it, others hate it. From broadcasting point of view, I'm just putting my legs up and saying, let's go racing. What else to be said about that? I'm actually racing on Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. Yes, people definitely picked up on that on the YouTube chat. Nevertheless, not the only thing going on here on the channel. We also have the Tuesday Night Sprint Series, where we're on the 9th Season 2 races have already passed. That is a bi-weekly championship, if I'm not mistaken completely, where we'll be heading over to, where we'll be heading down under for the next round at Mount Panorama. Difficult and challenging track, one of my personal favorites to drive, as you have this very, very tricky mountain section. Not that difficult when you get into the groove of it, but as soon as you get out of the groove and as soon as you lose your mojo on the track, then you have walls all the way around you through the very, very fast and twisty mountain section. 75 minutes of racing at that circuit. Looking forward to that very much before we head on to Zandvoort for the 60-minute race there. Still old Zandvoort, we have to remember, without the wonderfully banked corners around there before we finish the season at Valencia with another 75-minute race, where track limits might be one helpful factor. Also a track that have produced some wonderful races over the last couple of seasons, ever since it got released into the game. Valencia have been one of my favorites to both drive and commentate. What a wonderful place when we go race there in the beautiful sun of Spain. We also have some endurance races lined up, though don't be fooled. The very next race have been cancelled, which was COTA, that was changed to Spa, and many things about that. But we still have the 6 hours of Brands Hatch coming up, so get your teams ready and signed up for that. After the 6 hours of COTA, we'll be going to the Red Bull Ring for a 12-hour race, challenging track for endurance, as there'll be lots and lots of traffic there. Same goes for Brands Hatch, to be honest. And then we finish the season with the mighty Kyalami Raceway once again. 9 hours of racing around there. Surely one to look forward to for everyone that will be taking part in that. Something that I would have high on my calendar for that. There's also an LMU season, but I don't think we have graphics for that as of yet. But I can tell you as much as that will be starting in about 2 weeks' time on a Wednesday, and beautiful cars. You'll sort of have the GT3 cars that we know and love here from ACC, and then we'll have the hypercars that basically look like you gave a 6-year-old a pen and told him to draw a race car, so they look mad as anything. Something to behold. I'll personally be driving those mad hypercars myself. And what could go wrong with that? And yes, everything could go wrong when I get behind the wheels of race cars, so yeah, something to look forward to. As we actually have live pictures from qualifying already with Samuel von Liebenstein in a Honda. And a very, very wet track it looks like. It does look like that it will be drying up at the very end of qualifying, at least getting slightly less wet, but we will see an increase in the rain. So it's all about getting out there and getting some lap times in early for the drivers on board von Liebenstein. We can really see how he's fighting the steering wheel of the Honda. No proper smooth inputs there. A lot of fighting down the back straight into the S as we go. Clipping it nice and tight there. Look at how much he's fighting the wheel coming out of the S's. Not an easy car to drive, the Honda through the Melbourne hairpin, turning in, just waiting for the car to bite. Really looks like that it bit quite nicely there, the Honda. No oversteer in the exit though. Seems that he have that car under some sort of control. This will be Ferrari territory, of course, in the weather like this. Lining it up wide to get the best possible run up to the line to start his first flying lap with Samuel von Liebenstein, as he goes on to his very first time lap, using all of the track available there. cutting across the green AstroTurf from pit exit that we'll see basically every driver do, maybe here in qualifying and definitely in the race. Trying to avoid the curbs a little bit in qualifying, or at least in wet conditions. Maybe we'll see a little bit more, get more into that during the race. Hard in actually getting that curb, but you could see how that threw the car off of balance, and a lot of fighting with the wheel as soon as he touched it. They are not that bad if you're going full front, but as soon as you're turning sharply or doing throttle implications or accelerating hard on them, we should say, or braking on the curbs, then they'll get very treacherous. One slight big two moments on the lap. That one could be very costly that we're seeing at the minute, because that is a run onto the back straight. Losing time there by having to fight the car. A lot of invalid laps though around the track. I don't think Van Leeuwenstein is one of them. Coming across, still looking good into Melbourne corner. What will Van Leeuwenstein do on his first flying lap? Ooh, missing it a little bit, running wide, or at least deep into the corner. Back on the throttle into the sausage hairpin. This time not as wide as before, so he needs the lap time and not the run to the next flying lap. Let's see, across the line he goes. 1:33.4, immediately beaten by Engelhardt in the Porsche with a 33.3. Not a lot between them though. Seems very close. This Sunday championship might be a good way for the drivers to get some wins on the board. We don't have Michael Thomas competing in this one, who basically have been cleaning the Tuesday races. Few more times getting on the board. Smeets on provisional pole with the 1:33.2. The graphic might be a little bit off with valid and invalid laps at the minute, it looks like, but still following Engelhardt around as he comes into to copies or whatever Chris told me it was called before. Copies, you have to say it like something that comes out of the body. Into the S's for the Porsche. Let's see if we can see a little bit of oversteer there on the exit. Yes, we could. Big counter steering moment there. The Porsche should be a relatively good car in the wet as well. We do know that the Ferrari are extremely good in these conditions, which is surprising with the engine configuration. Usually the front engine cars are the ones to have in the rain. Then I just said the Porsche was a good car as well, and that is definitely not a front engine car. The quite opposite, some might say, but nevertheless, good car to have. Honestly, I feel like only the the Honda, the McLaren, and the lone Audi. There's actually someone picking an Audi. Very brave. Are some minor or less good cars to have. Also a rare Mercedes. I feel like the Audi have become more rare than the Mercedes in these times, but very good to see both Audi and Mercedes represented in this sprint series. I have a special soft spot for the Mercedes, of course. I've driven the Audi myself in endurance as well, but the Mercedes especially, I have a soft spot for. What a wonderful car to drive. Gets the best of both worlds when you set it up correctly, of the perfect 50-50 rate distribution, but the engine in the front, obviously, but getting it wrong and it will be a boat to drive. Which, to be fair, wouldn't be too terrible here in these super wet conditions. We have already seen the rain. We have already seen the rain increasing, but Engelhardt are still improving out there on track. Could he potentially snatch the pole away in these wet conditions? Could we see a Porsche on pole? One of the two Porsches in this championship, with Schegerman being the other one. But look at that, Nick Vargas jumps to second, and Leeuwenstein to second as well. Then now Engelhardt does it. Engelhardt takes provisional pole away, and by what a margin! By 0.3 seconds. Big lap there for Engelhardt. Vale across the line, and starting another lap. It looks like in the 808. I do think that seems to be something that rappers said in America. 808, hell yeah. Something like that. The 808 Mode 11 car as he runs wide and parks in the gravel. The lone Mercedes. Cross lane, one of my personal heroes for taking the Mercedes. Starting lap, you can see how slippery it is out there on track. Also a car that was made famous by Steve Parker as the drift machine. And yes, we have to mention that every time we go live, of course. If anyone out there have questions that they would like to ask and have answered, then put them in the YouTube chat and we'll try and get as many of them as possible during this evening of racing. Not that I think that all of the smart people out there watching have many questions, as they are obviously know-it-alls that knows better than me, but hey-ho, that is life. Let's see the Mercedes through. The S is not taking the curve under braking. Wise choice, I think. Actually looked very good there through the S's. Not sure it could have been done any better. Is it true that Donnington is also called the sausage track? That is very, very much true. Or at least something that I say. I claim it to be true. I don't think it actually is, but oh, big slide there. But pit entry though, if that was his plan all along, that was very nicely done. In 14th, I really can't see the name in this resolution. We have the 888 Ferrari. Luchin, I'm being told in my ear by my inside voice. In the Ferrari currently in 14th position, 2 seconds behind pole. Not unusual gaps when it comes to wet weather qualifying. But let's see if he can improve on it. He does have a little bit of traffic up ahead. That seems to be running wide and off the track. So Moses effect for him. Powering through into the SSC will go. Let's have a close look whether or not that he'll go through without any issues. Didn't look too shabby, to be honest. 10 minutes remain for the drivers to get a lap time in or get an improvement on their lap times, as all drivers have put a lap on the board. Through the Melbourne hairpin into the sausage hairpin we go. A bit wide there for Luchin, but let's see, across the line he comes. Oh, comes now, no improvements that time around, but still plenty of time to do so. Remember to hit the like and subscribe button out there and the bell for notifications when we go live here on the channel. Nick Vargas in the 1111 Mode 11 car. Currently set in third. Whether or not that you actually could improve in these conditions, as it does look like that it's a bit heavier than earlier on, it still might be a good idea to be out on track just to get a little bit of more to get a little bit more familiar with the track conditions and how the cars drive in these wet situations. Not something that the drivers usually practice that much when they go practice on their own, the wet weather driving. Or at least not something that I used to practice a lot. As to me, wet weather driving have always been a thing that either you can or you can't do it. It's difficult to learn, and you don't just improve your driving by practicing. It's all about feeling, getting in sync with the car, and doing it your way. Through the sausage hairpin, Nick Vargas goes. And let's see, I highly doubt he will improve, but run up to the line. Nope, no chance of that in these conditions, it looks like. So we can just enjoy some beautiful cars going around the track. Sean Caesar in the 240 McLaren through the S's. A little bit of slide there. The McLaren have are a very quick car to drive, but very sharp, and you have to be on it when you drive it. Tendency to be more oversteery than understeery, just warming the tires, it looks like. Coming out of the Melbourne hairpin before entering the sausage hairpin, going wide to get a good run onto his next flying lap as he comes up to the line with 7 minutes to go. Again, we see he is taking the pro line through turn 1 and using all of the available track there. The small trick of using the not AstroTurf, but the painted tarmac there on the pit lane exit, that is very much allowed to do so as long as you keep 2 wheels on within the white line. There we have a good example of what will happen if you're coming onto the curbing with high speed and turning the wheel. A little bit of a slide he got there from the curbs. Big one again, looks good on cameras, but I promise you he's not doing it intentionally. Not the fastest way around the track, but again, just to get the practice in these conditions, not too shabby, as we do see an increase in rain before it actually seems to be taking a little bit of a break with the wet weather conditions. Further down the line. Through Melbourne again. Before heading into the sausage corner, the greatest hairpin on the track, some might say. And across the line he went again. Following the Italian driver of Kyalami, that Italian guy in the 777 Ferrari last at the minute, but he have improved a little bit in the last couple of laps, so don't count him completely out yet, even though that the track is getting worse and worse, and the fewer people that are actually out there driving, the wetter it will also get. The more people out there, of course, would help getting the rain away from the track, at least creating a dry line. But with the amount of people who are currently in the pits, unlikely that that it will get much better before we actually go racing. But we could potentially have a situation with a drying track at the start of the race. Which would be very interesting to see which tires people choose to start on, and how long of a dry spell we'll actually get once we get there. Gracias in the 77 Ferrari. Also one of the few drivers who have opted to stay out there on track and getting some running in. Probably what I would have done as well in this situation. I do believe that some of the drivers in the pits, they are just getting the final setup and adjustments and making sure that it's completely right for the race. Doing fuel calculations as you'll burn less fuel in wet conditions, as you are much less on the throttle than in full dry. Some drivers even opt to run different engine modes in these conditions. Let's see what Grace will do through the SS he will go. Again, no curbing taken there on the braking. Look how stable that Ferrari looks, even in these conditions. Something completely different to the McLaren and the Mercedes that we saw before. Looks stable, but not super quick. But let's see. Setting it up for the next flying lap. Just chooses to practice pit entry. Good idea as well. If you anyways just sat in the pits, you might as well just go out on track, do a lap, and then drive into the pits to get that practiced. As the Italian guy parks it. That leaves only Mary out there on track for a DMF course. Just trying to gauge out where the puddles are and where you can go quick. Sometimes it's actually quicker not to be on the racing line in these conditions on this simulator. It's not perfectly simulated with the parts of the track that are super rubbered in, that are more slippery than the rest of the track, but you can still find advantages from time to time by going off the actual racing line. Some places there will be puddles on the racing line. If you can avoid them, you will do yourself a good favor there, just plowing through the gravel, using the car as an excavator of sorts. Probably one of the more expensive excavators if you're using a McLaren for that. Smeets have left the pit lane as well, which I don't see exactly why, as he will not be able to make it around to pit lane before qualifying ends, unless if Mary chooses to start a lap and then not invalidate. Mary starts a flying lap. Let's see what he will do. Going for the racing line, at least the qualifying line, the pro line, we should say. Using that little bit of extra tarmac on the pit exit. Looking lovely out there, it surely does, as we see Mary parking it in the gravel. That just leaves Simsport out on track. And that means that qualifying is over. Which will allow for me to do a quick grid rundown before we take a short commercial break. From last to first, I think we will go the Italian guy in last with Grace in 16th, Crossland in his Mercedes in 15th, Lucian in 14th, Kassar in 13th, Patrick van der Linden in 12th in the lone Audi, Sandervale in 11th, Schegerman in 10th, Carveletto in 9th, Greslik in 8th in the lucky 13th car, Vinelio in 7th, Mary in 6th, Odelman in 5th, Sebastian von Liebenstein lines up in 4th, Nick Vargas lines up in 3rd position with Simsport, and Engelhardt on the front row of the grid. Engelhardt taking pole position this evening. Which is a perfect time for me to leave you guys for a few seconds. And now we don't have Mr. Frank Hopsasar to entertain you for this short period of time, but I bet you will survive out there without any lovely voices for the next 4 or 5 minutes.
30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
As we are back just as the cars are about to start rolling and the rain have restarted while I've been away. So it will be a wet race, it looks like, at least for the first half hour plus, as Engelhardt starts to roll out from the front. Doesn't look like that Smeets have started moving now. He does start rolling further down the line. As he immediately runs wide in turn 1. Just using that Aston Martin as a very, very expensive lawnmower. Sometimes in these conditions it's not an advantage being the front man, as it's the front driver will have to gauge the track first and foremost to see where all the wet patches are. He will sort of be the guinea pig for the rest of the drivers. Where is it more wet than the rest of the track? He's the first one to find out. Upsides though are that he does have perfect visibility and he'll have nothing in terms of spray coming up from the other cars. No roofs or tails to look at from the front of the field. At least in the start of the race. But let's see once we actually start to get racing whether or not that Engelhardt can keep on to this first position off the starting line. Do remember that we do have a rolling start when we come around. Looking at all the cars getting ready for this one. 17 drivers will be duking it out at the mighty Donnington Park Sausage Raceway to see who will be the quickest in the rain. Does look like that Smeets are doing some sort of adjustments on a strategy, maybe, as it seems to be going quite a bit off track. On the formation lap, so he'll surely have some grass on his wheels, as they have started lining up in side-by-side formation. Look at that, Smeets once again. This is not a good sign for him. But ladies and gentlemen, we are on to the start-finish straight, which means we are shortly about to be racing. When do they actually start racing? Looks like that Engelhardt actually gets the jump off the line. Smeets still in second though. Drive through for Engelhardt. Engelhardt got a little bit of too good of a start there from pole position. He will have to come in and serve that within the first 3 laps. Not optimum for him. Smeets seems to have kept his car on the black stuff, at least initially. In second. Woo, crash further down. That's a center Vale involved in that one. I didn't see the other car, but it was one of the white cars. It could have been the I think it was the Audi of Patrick van der Linden who was out there mowing the lawn as well. Must have been, as van der Linden are the other car down at the bottom of the field in 16th now. Von Liebstein still in 4th, top 4, top 5 actually. It looks like that the top 7 even are unchanged after the start of the race. Everyone there keeping positions. Through the hairpin the first time, the Melbourne hairpin. before coming into the sausage hairpin. Let's see if Engelhardt drives in to take the drive-through immediately. No, he waits. Probably a smart idea when you're out in the lead anyway, taking as many laps in clean air as possible. But this surely will put a big span on his race plans. To see whether or not that he could win this race. It will be quite challenging now with that drive-through, but still a long race to go. Anything could potentially happen further down the field. Brian Schickerman in the other of the two Porsches racing this evening, under heavy pressure from Kaiser behind in the white and black McLaren. Good to see some color variations. And a bright orange car should be easier to spot in these conditions, at least, than a black car. I do think the Porsche do have the upside of being easier to drive than the McLaren in these conditions, but again, it's not that heavy rain as of yet. It will increase though in about 10 minutes time. Further up the field, Cavalietto under pressure from Grisik behind in the battle for 8th position. We can just see there different lines and different points of acceleration through the Melbourne hairpin. But very close and deep. Will he go for the move into the sausage hairpin? Looks like it. He comes up the inside. Goes through a little bit of archy-barchy bumping there, but does get it stopped on the apex a little bit surprisingly, but he did make that corner and got the bump from behind. He have taken position, it looks like, but into turn 1 side by side, not a lot of room. Looks like that Grislik have gotten through there and moved himself up into 8th position, as Cavalietto have been demoted to 9th. Let's see if we have an answer for that, and whether or not that he can strike back at 8th. On board here, where you can see just how little the drivers can see. We are aware that there are some bugs you can try for. Up the inside he goes, takes it back, no, loses it a little bit there. Strong move, but not good enough. There are some bugs you can take advantage of to get the spray away when you are driving in these conditions, but not something that I would recommend, as that takes away from the experience of driving in the wet. He did try for that, it did Cavalietto. But let's see, will he try for it into the Melbourne hairpin, or have Grisik just gotten that little bit of a gap now that makes it impossible? It does look like the Grisik have gotten the gap and pulled away pulled far enough away that he's not immediately initially under pressure from Cavalietto anymore, and he can start to think about catching up to the cars ahead. Engelhardt serving his drive-through penalty, last possible lap for that, which means that Sam Smeets have inherited the lead of the race, with Vargas just behind and von Liebenstein. Both of those drivers just trying to keep in there. That Honda will become trickier and trickier to drive as the rain increases, but for now it seems to be okay. Smeets and the Aston Martin, he just have to manage the gap to the cars behind at this point. About 1 second between himself and Nick Vargas in second. But that's the thing, you can never be too relaxed in these races. Engelhardt back out in the action, already past Center Vale, and we'll be looking at Grias next up the road. It is challenging to overtake in these conditions, but let's see what Engelhardt can do from 16th. Currently 1 hour 24 to go though, so anything could happen. And I tell you what, even though that we had such rather large gaps in qualifying, doesn't look like that the pace difference is that big in the races. They are all still basically in a straight line. Yellow flag was out shortly there in the S's, but didn't look too serious, as von Liebenstein are so close to Vargas. Looks like Vargas are holding up a little bit of a train with Odelman as well in the back end of this. this group of three have a little bit of a gap up to Simsport and a little bit of a gap down to Mary. But let's see what happens. We can see that Honda moving about a little bit as it drives. So difficult in the rain. Is that Honda? But look at that speed he's got when it comes to it. Ooh, Odelman there, maybe pushing it a little bit too much, sending it too hard to try and keep up with Van Liebenstein and Vargas. Van Liebenstein still looking at that black rear end there and sending it very hard there over the curbs, just touching the grass. Can be very difficult getting the car back onto track when you start to get out there. It's like the grass will drag you further and further out if you don't get it under control quickly. Liebenstein, I don't think he's close enough to try it into the S's, so he'll just have to tuck in and try and get the exit that allows the move into the Melbourne hairpin, but doesn't look like he's quite close enough to send it. He will have to be patient. Not being too patient, that might leave the door open for all the men behind. Through the sausage hairpin and onto the start-finish straight we go once again. It's so close between them. Not much in pace between these three drivers from second to fourth. But Smeets pulling away a bigger and bigger gap up in front, 2.4. Smeets now down to Nick Vargas. This could be the day for the Aston Martin driver. Tighter line from Van Liebenstein, but on the exit just gets a little bit too much of that curbing and AstroTurf. Losing a bit of momentum as he have to deal with the car sliding, not having the same traction out on the curbs and the AstroTurf as they do on the tarmac in these conditions. Someone definitely have been touching those tire barriers that are now in the middle of the racing track. It is sort of settling down a bit between the three of them at the minute. Yellow flags were out once again. That was Engelhardt, and Engelhardt is out of the race. I think he had a little bit of an incident there in the S's that have caused him to retire from the race. Unfortunate that the pole sitters already out that have promoted Sander Vale into 16th, of course, and which means it's Sander Vale's turn to try and attack Greyers in 15th. Vale not getting too good of a rotation out there of the sausage hairpin. He comes flying through the two of the three lone manufacturer selections in 12th and 13th as well in this event. As we see them actually side by side here with Patrick van der Linden and Crossland. Risky business, but but Patrick van der Linden moves up into 12th position. We did see Patrick being involved with Vale there early on in the race and plowing the grass on lap 1. So Patrick van der Linden on a bit of a recovery drive, now up into 12th position, passing Crossland for that spot. The Audi is not the nicest car to drive in these conditions, but it looks like that van der Linden does have it under control. He can start focusing on catching up to the cars ahead. Further up, it does look like that Van Liebenstein have actually made the overtake on Nick Vargas, promoting himself into second, which means Vargas have dropped to third and Alderman is all the way out of this battle. I wonder what have happened between these drivers. But Vargas dropped to third, Van Liebenstein now in pursuit of Sim Smeets in first position. But 4 seconds between them already. He will have to pull some magical laps in to try and catch up at this point, and he no longer have Vargas to show him the way in the braking points as the rain increases more and more this dreadful Sunday evening over the Donnington Sausage Raceway Park. At Donnington Park Sausage Raceway, simply Sausage Raceway, Alex is saying in the YouTube chat, which definitely would be easier to pronounce. But Vargas not giving up on the fight, still close behind. Oh, sending it too hard there through the S's, and Vargas goes off plowing the grass, but still not giving up. Still within reach of Van Liebenstein. He will have to make a little bit of catch-up work once again to try and get right up underneath the wing there of Van Liebenstein. Let's see what happened in the actual overtake. I think that that Vargas just had a bad exit of sorts and maybe gone a little bit too wide on the fast left right-hander, and then Van Liebenstein had the better traction and made that overtake nice and easy. As Vargas have dropped behind to a point where it is hard to get back to Van Liebenstein. The gap have opened up to 1.5 seconds between them. Grasik have caught up to Vinello ahead of him. Grasik does seem quick in this race. He did make the move on Cavaletto before, and now it's the other Italian, or another Italian, I just assume. Vinello in the nice numbered car. But Grasik definitely applying the pressure in the unlucky for some numbered car. I would say it's a lucky number. Very close in behind. Closely in behind. He is close enough to try forward into the Melbourne hairpin. But good defensive driving there from Vinello. But now he opens up for the opportunity on the exit. Didn't look like that Grasik got a good enough run there to take advantage into the sausage hairpin, where we have seen Grasik make moves before, or at least earlier today. But again, just not close enough. It is so difficult to stay close enough to other drivers, especially in these conditions. You really have to trust your gut on when you can go on that accelerator. Crosslane have dropped to 16th now in the Mercedes as well. I wonder if he has been off the track. He might have been, so he'll have a little bit of catching up to do. Ooh, car gone off just ahead of them. That was Mary. I think Mary have gone off the track into the grass. I think he stayed out of the barriers at least. Back on track in 8th position. He will be under pressure from Scheckerman if he's not careful. The car doesn't look battle scarred, but Scheckerman immediately behind him and applying the pressure. Oh, it does have some impact damage. It looks like Mary might have actually gone and touched the wall. Wonder if it will be enough to warrant a pit stop, or whether or not that he will stay out there driving with the damage. We do see the rain is dropping in intensity in not so long, and will continue to drop for at least half an hour or so. So we will probably go out of these super heavy wet conditions to a more usual, somewhat British Sunday afternoon wet situation. But look at that Scheckerman all over the back of Mary already. I wonder if the damage is actually impacting Mary's driving, or if it's just a mentality thing. Once you've been off the track and you know how much the track bites. As he goes wide there, and that's Scheckerman through. Scheckerman goes through and up into 8th position. Look at the gap that he just immediately got pulling away. Scheckerman in 8th position in these treacherous conditions. The last remaining Porsche. Oh, big slide. Here's what happened with Crossland. Just throttling on that AstroTurf. Does he hit the wall? Oh, he does hit the wall. That will be some damage on the side of the car. I've done exactly the same thing on this track. On that specific curve. Although that wasn't a Ferrari 488, but nevertheless, he's down to last, and Mary will probably be dropping a little bit further down until he gets back into the groove of things. As Scheckerman continues to push on, 4 seconds up to Ottelman. Ottelman must have been off the track as well. He have dropped from 4th and down to 7th as well. So Ottelman in another bit of a comeback drive. Tom Griesig still applying the pressure to Vanello. Does look like that he have stretched the sword at least for a little bit. Going into just staying behind and waiting for something to happen, maybe just being a little bit more safe on the driving. The 24 car's off. That's a car off in the gravel trap. That's Van Liebenstein. Van Liebenstein has gone off in turn 1. It's really kicking off now. Everyone seems to be off left, right and center. And Donnington Park Sausage Raceway does seem to be biting a bit. Griesig on the attack on Vanello. Getting very, very close. Taking a little bit more of the curbing, it looks like that Griesig is able to do. Then Vanello, he does. It looked like he was going to come flying in there, but nicely saved. But that's just it. We have seen Ottelman, we have seen Van Liebenstein, we have seen Crossland, we have seen Engelhardt, we have seen all the big names basically going off track. So it could happen for anyone at this point. Does look like that Griesig is in very good sync with the car, with the aggressiveness that he can drive without risking the car at all. Here's what happened to Alderman. Oh, just going onto that grass, and then you cannot get that car stopped. Does manage to do so. Did manage to get it stopped before it went too badly, but big time loss there from Ottelman and position loss as well. And the action just continues. Griesig this time definitely on the attack on Vanello. This time it will be for 3rd position. Looks like that he's just edging ahead, and he does get the move done into turn 1. Griesig up into 3rd position. He have definitely been on the move so far today, but 5 seconds now up to Nick Vargas. But Griesig does seem to have a lot of pace in the car, so I wonder if he can catch up, as Vanello and Cavaletto have been sort of bunched up together, and they could potentially be in for some battling as well, now that Griesig have gone into 3rd. But it's now the question, can Griesig pull away from the chasing Italians and the Ferraris behind? Or will he be put under pressure? Time will tell. There's another car off. It's the 13 car. That's the Audi of Patrick van der Linden, who have also gone off and into a barrier. Rejoining the track as will Mary in the pits. We saw him early on with contacts with the wall, so he might maybe come in to get that damage repaired. Back up to the big group of cars, led by Griesig, but he is not pulling away initially, at least, with Vanello and Cavaletto behind. Ottelman as well, just edging off behind, and Van Liebenstein at the back of this pack. So Ottelman and Van Liebenstein, they'll have to try and work together to go back up through the field and try and get back to the podium positions. From Dario Vianello's rear end of the car, looking back at Cavaletto. Not that we can see much of the car in these, with all the spray coming up behind. All the spray coming from the wing, sort of say, or coming beneath the wing. Chasing through slightly different lines we see the drivers are taking. It could just be down to the wet conditions. It does look like that Vianello's running a little bit more TC than Cavaletto at least. Or he might just be better on the throttle control. The rear end of Dario Vianello's car is not as loose. At least it doesn't look as loose as Cavaletto's car at this point of the race. We now know that in half an hour's time the rain will increase. We will see a little bit of a drop in the rain intensity before it goes back up. That might be good news for some and bad for others. That's the 76 car that's been off, or 77, or I think it's the 76 that's been off. That's Crossland again in the Mercedes, not having the best of days in on the red sausage park. Looks like the Griesig is actually pulling a little bit away now from the big group behind. I do feel like he's pulled far enough ahead that he's no longer the trained driver. But Ordelman and Van Niebenstein still struggling to catch back up to the two Ferraris. Does look like that these Ferraris are going very well in these wet conditions. On the nose cone of Cavaletto's car, or on the nose cone of Cavaletto's Ferrari, we should say. Giving big chase. Crossland comes into the pits. Can see absolutely nothing up ahead except for the spray being kicked up. You really have to know your track when you go racing in these conditions. Knowing your braking points to the exact. Through the sausage hairpin, Cavaletto taking the wider approach, trying to cut it tighter, getting the better exit. Does get a good exit. Is it enough to get a move in? He is looking for it, but it will be covered off there by Vianello into turn 1. Cavaletto does look like he has a little bit of extra pace hidden away in the car that he could unlock if he could get through. Whoa, that was a car going slow on the side. Was that Griesig? I don't think it was. I think that was a lapped car. Patrick van der Linden off again, this time in the sausage hairpin. Patrick not having a good day in the Audi. Back up to the battling pack. The battle for 4th, we should say. As Griesig have pulled away now at a point where he's definitely no longer involved in this battle. Well, there's Vianello, Cavaletto and Ordelman, at least initially, and then we have Van Niebenstein not too far behind, just lurking in the background. Vianello have a little bit of a gap now. I think he have denied Cavaletto, or Cavaletto have maybe made a little bit of a mistake, a slight mistake that have caused him that gap. Blue flag was waved there, so it might mean that there's a back marker up ahead of them somewhere. Chris is saying Patrick van der Linden car. No, he would not be car 13. I think he's car 18. Might be a back marker behind them in the mix somewhere that they have passed. And the blue flag was for further down the line. It's really under those heavy braking zones that it looks like that Cavaletto is a little bit quicker than Vianello and can get the car slowed down better and gets better on the acceleration. But then the more high-speed stuff, it looks like that Vianello have a little bit of an advantage over Calvaletto. Could just be that he have the clean air ahead of him and then nothing to interrupt him. Into the double hairpins we go once again. Melbourne first, and then the sausage hairpin after that. Ottleman on a little bit of a drifting session behind. Meats does have the gap now where he can easily control it from the front. He have gone above 10 seconds of lead down to Vargas in second. I tell you what, Checkerman is actually catching up to the back of this group as we just see Ottleman there going a little bit too hard into turn 1 behind, which leaves Calvaletto and Vianello to themselves now to duke this out between them. No pressure from behind anymore. They are really getting it in nicely together. I wonder if there's some sort of communication going on between them. I think they're both from the sim racing team, the SRT group, or the SRT team. Split screen situation with Ottleman and von Liebenstein in the bottom right hand corner, and Vianello and Calvaletto in the top main screen. We have seen Ottleman pushing a lot lately, as we just saw Liebenstein have a little bit of a slide through the S's. Into the hairpin we go for both groups of cars. Both battles are happening just behind each other. Vianello getting a good run there out of the Melbourne hairpin. It does look like that Ottleman is struggling a little bit with the car. I wonder if his tires have gone over pressured at this point, or under pressured maybe even. It doesn't look like that his car's gripping as well as it used to in the start of the race. And that's a big thing in these wet conditions. How much pressure do you put in your tires? What exact amount of rain are you setting your car up to be driving in? Are you running full wet setup, or are you doing the regular dry setup and hoping that will be good enough? As Calvaletto still have the I do think that he have a little bit of a pace advantage, but he's not really threatening Vianello at this point. They might just be or he might just be waiting for the opportune moment, or for Vianello to make a mistake, not pushing it too much. They have managed to gap the cars behind, of course, and that could have been the main thing for them to do. With Ottleman and von Liebenstein, we can just see them there in the background coming through. Also in the same close formation as these guys have been. Ooh, there came the mistake from Vianello going way too wide there, but Calvaletto not close enough to take advantage of it. Little bit of a missed apex there from Calvaletto. Not that he lost too much on that. It looks like they're still running in this sort of a fighter formation, following each other as closely as possible. Samuel von Liebenstein applying the pressure to Ottleman behind. Rain seems to be decreasing, but then will increase again later on, so it's all about enjoying these I wouldn't say great racing conditions, but slightly better than we saw at the start of the race. Ottleman really close, von Liebenstein really close to Ottleman this time, showing himself not really close enough for the move into the S's. but Allman getting a little bit of a slide coming out of them. That leaves it somewhat open for von Liebenstein, but not open enough. But for von Liebenstein as well, this is a situation where the more aggressive he is with the of showing himself, the more Ottoman will be aware of him behind. But then Ottoman will also have to start thinking more about von Liebenstein than catching up to Calvaletto and Vianello up ahead. So this could be good for the two Italians in 4th and 5th. Through turn 1 we go. Heading down the road. Yet another driver have retired from the race. Just trying to figure out who that was. It wasn't the Mercedes nor the Audi. It must have been a Ferrari, I think. Maybe the lovely YouTube chat will go back a few minutes and tell us. That would be lovely of the people out there watching. But that Honda in these conditions, it's a real man's car to drive when it's wet. Huge challenge for von Liebenstein to go through this race, and we saw how costly it was making just one small mistake. Calvaletto and Vianello still unchanged between them. But still very close as well. Doesn't look like that Calvaletto is that interested in pushing for the move. We have seen some situations where he could have launched it up the inside, and it does look like that he have the braking power to get it stopped on the apex, but choosing to keep nicely and tucked in behind, not risking anything. It's also quite early in the race still, with 56 minutes to go in this one. A lot of things could happen, but look how close they are now coming down the hill. Rounding the bottom corner before going uphill once again. Two Italians very, very close together. Well, it's almost some sort of formation driving they're doing at this point. But that's the thing, when you are that close, then you really have to react to the driver up ahead. If he's braking just that meter earlier than you're expecting, then you're really on it. Then you have to also brake earlier and maybe a little bit harder than you probably wanted to do, and that will lose you time and track position. So it is difficult being this close together, but Calvaletto is doing a great job of it at this point. If I was him, I would start to get a little bit tired of looking at the back of another of that Ferrari up ahead. Good evening out there. I would get very tired of that, but again, it's not that easy to get this this done. Looks like that von Liebenstein is actually out there trying to cool his tires in the background on the front straight. That could indicate that they are over pressured and getting a little bit hot. Yeah, but so you can see how he's using as much track as possible all the time to try and stay with Vianello. And it is sort of working for him, but he is working that car a little bit hard at this stage of the race. He needs to really be careful that he's not overdriving it and losing that tire grip. Fresh wet tires makes a lot of difference, so if you can keep your wet tires alive for as long as possible, do have a greater opportunity to be quick in these conditions. Of course, new wet tires will be better as you have more what would you call them? So you have more tire basically. drive through for Mary. That seems to be track cuts in the rain for Mary down in 14th position. If you're enjoying the stream out there, then hit the like button, then maybe consider subscribing. Von Lebenstein dives into the pits. We did see him struggling with trying to cool his tires, so this could be a strategical call. Of course, the one mandatory pit stop is only for refueling, but he could potentially go in there, change his tires, get those pressures sorted out, and coming back out on track. But running 53 minutes on the tires will be a disadvantage compared to those who, if they select to change the tires, it's not mandatory, of course, to do so, but I think we will see quite a few drivers out there opting to change them in the pits when they're anyways in there. Mary goes through the pits and serves the drive-through, comes back out somewhere in the middle of the pack. But this is it for Alderman. Alderman really now needs to just focus on his lap times and make sure that he's driving quicker than Von Lebenstein. Elsewise, Von Lebenstein might actually be doing the greatest of undercuts that we have seen so far. If we can go out there and light his tires quickly and get them working, then he could potentially do a very, very smart thing here. He could gain 3 positions if he can get it under control and get those tires working and do some good lap times. As we do see Calvaletto now looking at Alderman dives in to defend position. Not a bad choice for Alderman, but it does leave the 2 Ferraris out there battling each other. I wonder if they will do split strategies, as we do see Calvaletto now being a little bit more aggressive, showing himself all over the back of Vianello. Will this be the time for Calvaletto to get the move and finally try and challenge for that position? He have been lurking in the background for a good half an hour at this point, maybe just 20 minutes, but that sort of timeline there, he's just been lurking. But again, it doesn't seem like that he can actually get it done. Better acceleration, but the braking zone will definitely hurt it as he gets it just a little bit too close. But will he have to run on the exit? Doesn't look like it. Got a little bit too close there, under braking, and had to keep the car in a straight line to avoid running into Vianello. So Calvaletto still in 5th, giving chase, but it does feel like that he have just turned up the car just one more notch and started to apply a little bit more pressure. Trying to set it up into the sausage hairpin. You can just see how much better he can get the car slowed down, looking for it on the inside. Not putting his nose in. He didn't sort of look like that he was backing out of that one, even though that he had the room. But now he's coming big overspeed, going through on the inside. Calvaletto up into to 4th position. Almost looked like that Vianello handed him that position on the front straight there. Not wanting to risk the car. Maybe that was a smart move, just allowing Calvaletto to go through. But now Calvaletto have to sort of pull away to prove that that was worth it. Also to defend track position on Von Lebenstein and Alderman, who have taken their pit stops. And if they are pushing out there on track, they could potentially undercut these 2. And behind them, Scheckerman is not too far behind anymore either. Just 1.7 seconds from Scheckerman and up to Vianello. Looking at Alderman in 12th position, 1.5 behind Von Lebenstein, which actually means that Von Lebenstein did get the undercut going for him and made it work at least on Alderman. Von Lebenstein being the lead driver of those who have pitted. I don't think he will be very close to challenging Sim Smeets, Nick Vargas or Grisik there for actual position on track when they have taken their mandatory stops, but he could potentially challenge for that 4th with good lap times now. Simsport have been doing a very, very discreet race apart from all the lawn mowing that he did on the formation lap. Then he have just been driving solidly up there alone, 16-second gap to Nick Vargas. It is one of these situations where it's all about controlling the gap, controlling the risk you're taking, not doing anything silly. He can take his time when he comes to back markers. He doesn't have to push it into every corner. He can afford to be just that little bit safer to his max pace and find a safe rhythm to drive in, even though it's difficult in these conditions where you want to be pushing all the time to keep as sharp as possible to not lose concentration on track. Simsport does seem to be doing a good job of just maintaining that speed up in the front. Again, with no risks at all. We are getting into the pit stop window for those who would be pitting at the halfway point. But in a race like this, we don't know what's going to happen further out into the future than half an hour. So, would it be worth taking the pit if the track dries up near the end of the race? Unlikely, though, that we'll see a track that's ready for anything other than the wet tires. But it is an opportunity, and it is something that could potentially happen. But whether or not it would be worth taking the chance, we'll have to see. Highly doubtful, but you never know. Looking a bit at Nick Vargas in second position. We did see him a little bit early on as he was in the battle there with Van Liebenstein. And Van Liebenstein actually getting through and taking it away, but then he made the mistake that gave Vargas the position. Then he haven't looked back ever since. Ferrari, one of the easier cars to drive in the wet conditions in my opinion, but not to take anything away from the great drive that Vargas have been doing out there today. Mistake free and clinical as Patrick van der Linden have come into the pit stop to serve his mandatory stop. This will be interesting where he gets out in relation to Marion Crossland. As Vargas coming around, this is a reasonable track for the Mode 11 team. This is where Bas van Mellis claimed his semi-pro championship not that many seasons ago. It was actually a bit funny. If Bas wouldn't have won the final race, he would and finished second, he would still have become champion. But then he would have become the first champion not to win a race in series history, which would have been something for the record books. But nevertheless, Nick Vargas solid driving out there in second. In the green and yellow iteration of the Mode 11 livery. Bit of a classic in the community at this point, we would say, with the Mode 11 car. Does look slightly better in red and white. Caesar comes into the pits as we have reached the halfway point of the race. Griesig in third. We have seen some great overtakes from him earlier on. It did seem like his car's a little bit loose, but for some reason it seems like the looseness of the McLaren suits him in these conditions. Even though it's sliding around a bit, it didn't seem to hurt him at all earlier on in the race. Some strong driving from him. 13 is unlucky for some, but not for Griesig. Simsport comes into the pits from the front of the field. Will Vargas follow? Unlikely. I think Vargas will stay out on track to take the glory laps in front of the field. We have seen the Mode 11 drivers do that before in sprint races, staying out a little bit longer to try and get those few laps in front. But Vargas stays out and takes the lead of the race with Griesig in second now. Even confirmed on the timing boards. Speed's already rolling again. There we saw Griesig lapping Crossland in the lone Mercedes. Smeets does come out a long way in front of the rest of the drivers who have pitted, only dropping to 6th position. Does Smeets. Just over halfway into the race, and there are some gaps that are starting to form around the track. Some would say finally, if it have been super close for the first 3/4 of an hour here at the Simply Sausage Raceway. Speaking of sausage, Griesig comes into the sausage hairpin. Choosing to continue to stay out. I think I would personally have taken the pit stop at this point. We do see drivers coming in behind. Kyalami have come into the pits. Both of the Italians we saw before, Calvaletto and Vinello, have gone into the pits as well. That will be interesting to see where they come out on track, because if Von Liebenstein and Odelman have been pushing really hard on their fresh tires, they could potentially have undercut them. Schickerman, the lone surviving Porsche of the race, trying the overcut. I would probably have opted to defend position, or at least stay close to the two Ferraris, but at this point he will have to try the overcut, do 1 or 2 laps on top of the Italians while they come in and before they get heat into their tires. He does have the potential of catching at least one of them out and overtaking on strategy, as he was just 1 second behind before the pit stop round, or before the 2 Italians pitted in. So that will be interesting to follow. Let's see what Schickerman does this time around. 41 minutes to go. Very unlikely that we're going to see a perfectly dry track. He could potentially, if his tires are set up for full wet pressures, then he could potentially just run it through the next rain period, as Griesig came into the pits that time around. Schickerman continues out on track. Same does Nick Vargas. This could be also, they could be running a strategy of not changing tires at all, just going for the fuel in the pits. That could be the strategy as well. I think personally I would have liked to look at that. Von Liebenstein actually did make the undercut work. Odelman didn't, but he is close to the 2 Italians. But Von Liebenstein did come out ahead of of Calvaletto and Vianello. Great strategy drive there from Von Liebenstein, as we see him in frame with the 2 Ferraris behind. Griesig, Vale and Greyas into the pits as well to serve their mandatory stops. It does look like that Calvaletto have left Vianello a little bit behind. Vianello is trying to defend from Odelman while we're speaking. Reyes into the pits. Odelman here in frame, pushing as hard as he can to try and use the warmer tires on that Aston Martin over the SRT car of Vianello in just up ahead. I do think at this point that Vianello have gotten the heat into the tires that he needs. So that's an opportunity lost there from Odelman. But he wasn't that far behind Von Liebenstein when they were driving. Von Liebenstein must have only just gotten out ahead of the 2 SRT cars. And then Odelman must have been caught just behind. Oh, I think we saw an overtake further up the field there, or just ahead of us, or was that maybe just a back mark getting out of the way? Hard to say. But did look like that someone was moving out of the way for another car. No, it didn't. Probably was just a back marker in the mix. But Griesig not that far ahead of Van Liebenstein. Actually, Van Liebenstein could potentially catch up to Griesig and challenge for that third position of the race. I wonder if Van Liebenstein and the Ferraris actually did take tires, as they are so close to Griesig. Griesig have made a little bit of a mistake, as we see a black Ferrari there coming from the gravel trap or the grass back onto the track. Could have been Mary, I think it was Mary. It looked, maybe it was a McLaren then. No, it wasn't Mary. Oh yeah, it could have been Mary, as he is at the right spot of the track. Too many black cars. At this point, it's only Vargas and Schickerman who haven't stopped yet, and we must assume that they are just coming in for fuel and no tires when it gets time to pit, and that could potentially gain. I don't think Vargas will gain enough to take the lead of the race, but for Schickerman, that could potentially promote him quite far up the running order. Further down the field, Patrick van der Linden and Sander Vale close together on track. We haven't seen much to these two cars. Speaking of non-black cars in this event, we have seen Van der Linden, of course, in a little bit some incidents, and we did see Vale and van der Linden earlier on. I believe it was those two cars that were off in the grass at the beginning of the race, as they will have to deal with a little bit of traffic here with Crossland and the Mercedes, who just lifts off on the straight and lets them go through. But let's see what van der Linden can do. One thing is to catch up to another car, another thing is to actually get the overtake done. Van der Linden have gotten into the distance where he will have to adjust his braking zones according to Vale ahead of Schickerman have come into the pits from second. And now it's the question of tires or not for Schickerman. If it's just a fuel stop, I do think that he will emerge or rejoin the track at least ahead of Vianello in 7th. But if he does take the tires as well, he will go quite a bit further down. Let's wait and see. I do think he is taking tires, as he have been stationary for quite a while at this point. Surely that's a tire change. As he have started moving, he will come out behind the group. Next cars up will be Vianello on track. He comes in, and Ortelman as well. But he is close to them. If he did take tires there, then he will definitely have an advantage for the remainder of the race. Or remainder of the race. The other word seemed a little bit strange to put into that sentence. Ortelman applying the pressure to Vianello. Battle for 6th position between Vianello and Ortelman. Ortelman, of course, was way further up the field earlier in the race, but a small mistake put him all the way back down into these positions. And that's the thing, even though that Ortelman might be a little bit quicker than Vianello, he still have to pass him, and have to pass him cleanly. And it's not that much quicker that it will be easy for him to get this move done. He will have to use all of his racecraft available and all of his knowledge of how to drive in these conditions to make this move on Vianello. We did see him earlier in the race. He's not a stranger to be driving under pressure with his teammate Cavaletto right behind him for quite a long time, and he did that without making a single mistake in front of him. So yeah, it will be difficult for Ottleman to get this move done. Yellow flags are out. I think that's Griesig. That's Griesig. Griesig in the gravel trap. Griesig will have lost to Von Liebstein. Loses to both Cavaletto there and Ottleman, of course, that would have been, and Vianello. So Griesig have made the mistake. First time we see him in the gravel today. Falling back behind Ottleman, but just ahead of Schickermann. So this group of cars all of a sudden got way more interesting with Griesig there. If he can find his mojo again and get back to the pace that he had at least before the pit stop rounds, then he could still get it done. But half an hour on these conditions, he will have to get the moves made, and it is always risky in the rain to get it done. Ooh, mistake there from Ottleman, and Griesig goes through. In the SS, Ottleman makes that little bit of the braking mistake. Will be enough for Schickermann as well to overtake Ottleman. Schickermann goes to the outside, Ottleman defending the inside. Doesn't quite look like it. So Ottleman drops behind Griesig. Let's see what happened to Griesig there. Into turn 1 we go. Oh, he just lost it on the turning. The rear just continued to rotate. And then he got parked at a very, very unfortunate position across the track, and then comes back in. Fair enough, but he is back racing with us. Unfortunate mistake from Griesig that have lost him a potential podium, but have gone back at it in the race from 6th. Now he'll have to deal with the 2 Italians once again. He have made the overtakes before, but can he do it all again with half an hour to go? He is quite close to Vianello, but after Vianello he will have a gap of 5 seconds up to Cavaletto. So that 4th will be difficult to get up to, but if he can get the move done on Vianello, who we have seen in this race being very, very good at not making the mistakes, which makes it very difficult to overtake him. So Griesig will have to think of something maybe a little bit out of the box to get this move done. We did see in his first overtakings of I think that was Cavaletto, where he made the move into the sausage hairpin. But again, just staying close to other cars in these conditions, it's treacherous. If they make a little bit of a mistake and you're too close to them, you have no chance to react. And that's the thing you really have to keep in mind here. And they might change the braking from lap to lap, as the conditions always keep changing in the rain. And you just have to react to it so well. No room for errors. Luca Mari still going strong in 13th. You've had a few incidents in the race, but we can see he's not dropping off of the back of the group ahead, even though he's several laps down. But he could potentially have been in this mix. A little bit unlucky today with some unfortunate spins and crashes, but he does seem to have the pace to actually keep up with these guys. What only could have been for Luca Mari if everything went his way. But still, he's not last, and he's not even close to. We have Kyalami behind and Crossland. Must look like that Shakerman are right up the rear end of Alderman. Vargas still haven't pitted. I think he will leave it maybe 20 more minutes and just come in for the smallest of splash. Grisik with the drive-through penalty in the rain. That puts a span on his comeback drive, and will allow Vianello to breathe, as he will have about a 1.8 second of a lead down to Alderman behind. And the longer Grisik stays out, the more he helps out Vianello in this situation, actually. Grisik comes in immediately to serve the drive-through. And about the 1.8 second gap between Alderman and Vianello, that's the thing. Can Alderman catch up? But again, he will have Shakerman right behind, who's applying a lot of pressure there. Going up to the battle. Look at this. This is why that Alderman is not able to catch up to Vianello. He's under so much pressure from Shakerman, who does go for it there into the corner at the bottom of the hill. Ooh, but not close enough. Then almost losing it through the kinks there from Shakerman in the Porsche. Alderman haven't been so super consistent today as we usually see him. A few mistakes here and there, and in these conditions, you lose so much every time you go offline. Just trying to get it back in there must be a little bit of an understeery situation by looking on Alderman's car compared to Shakerman, and maybe most of the other cars seems a little bit more oversteery, but Alderman's the opposite way around. Maybe overcompensating for the wet setup. But you know what they say, when it rains cats and dogs, just drive a Porsche. Oh, well, I don't know if anyone actually says that, but you could start saying it from now on, and then it will be something that everyone says. Must be so frustrating for Shakerman just looking at that rear end of the other cars. He haven't really been in too much overtaking action, Shakerman, today, but he have been close driving with Alderman, and it have been one of these situations. I personally think that's one of the most fun parts of sim racing, when you're close to another car. Just those over a second, up to 2, 3, 4 seconds, when you can see the gap coming down lap by lap, ever so slightly, and all of a sudden you are right within striking position. But you are pushing so much, and you know the car that you're chasing are pushing to the absolute maximum as well. And you know it's going to come down to a small mistake at some point, but who will make the mistake are always the question in those situations. Drive-through penalty for Alderman. There came the mistake. Seems to be the S's that are catching out the drivers. So free position for Shakerman, who can then try and catch up to Vianello in 5th. All of a sudden this race looks very, very nice for Shakerman. From I think starting just outside of the top 10 for Shakerman, and then all the way up into 6th position. Good gains for the Dutch driver. Oh, that's Patrick van der Linden, and I think Sander Vale at it again. It is Sander Vale and Patrick van der Linden. just coming into that side-by-side and two cars spinning wildly out of control. Second time today we see these two into the grass together. Griesick back out on track into in 7th position. But wow. Big crash there late in the day. This have not been the day of either Patrick van der Linden or Sander Vale. That's Griesick, he's a lap down to Nick Vargas at this point. But the Vargas are still yet to pit. I do feel like that Griesick actually have been a little bit quicker today than Vargas, but just making a few too many mistakes. Here we go, let's see what happens. Into the corner. Oh, just losing the car there. Looks like that Sander Vale does. Not much he could have done there. Getting that oversteer, maybe aquaplaning on the water, and then unfortunately causing the contact due to that with Patrick van der Linden. Very, very unfortunate, but that is what could happen or can happen when you go racing in the rain. Half an hour to go, and it is confirmed it will be raining to the end of the race at this point. But I do wonder when Vargas will come in and take that pit stop and how long he can go. Yellow flags are out, and that's for the Porsche. That's Schickermann. This time it was Schickermann. He have been driving almost perfectly so far this evening. But Schickermann into the spin. And he will have to hope that some of the cars further up the road gets a little bit of bad luck for him to catch up at this point. But that's the thing. When you're driving on the limits in these conditions, going over the limit just by that 0.5%, that's so punishing. And that's, I think, what happened to Schickermann. That just going that 0.5% over the limit of the car could have been a slight touch on the grass, could have been a wet patch, could have been aquaplaning, it could have been many things, but very unfortunate nevertheless. But Vargas still out there cruising in the front. I tell you what, if Vargas only comes in for a very quick splash and dash, he could potentially win the race. I think Vargas might have been putting down a lesson in strategy today, teaching the rest of the grid what to do in these situations. We have seen that Ferrari being so stable, so I don't think that he have overdriven the tires either. With all the time that he have had on his own, he's just driving it nice and easily, and that gap is quite big. Simsport are still nowhere near the start-finish line at this point. Just rounding the sausage hairpin, and now Smeets comes across start-finish line. I do think that if Vargas actually does just do the splash and dash, he could potentially take the win today. Lot of pressure on Vargas if he realizes that that's the situation. But he is an ice-cold driver who's used to the pressure, so I think he could go for it. Oh, another car off. That's Crossland in the Mercedes in the sausage hairpin. Now I just closed stuff on my PC for no particular reason. Meet in traffic. And saying still with the fastest lap of the race, we might by the end of the race see some somewhat reasonable conditions to try to challenge for that. But do remember we did have some great weather at the start of the race. Well, not great weather, but it wasn't raining per se when they were lining up on the grid. But then from there on out, it have been a rain shower all the way throughout. But decreasing in intensity, the rain will be for the next half hour, even though we only have 18 minutes of racing to go. I wonder if Smeets realizes that the win is under threat from Vargas if he can do this splash and dash successfully. But we will have to wait and see. It is of course the Friendly Sunday Cup, so most of the drivers are sat talking to each other, might be joking around, trying to apply a bit of pressure on each other. I highly do recommend, if you go racing with us, that you join these voice channels. It's sometimes more entertaining than the actual driving itself. It's just a bunch of fun, nerdy guys doing a little bit of nerdy free time activities like sim racing. Or jump into the playtime voice chat when you're just sat hanging around doing something different. Oh, that was a little bit lucky there for Smeets. Looked like that he put his left set of tires all the way over the curb and into the grass. That's one of the things here at Donnington, that we often see the slow punctures around here. Some drivers even purposely overpressure their tires because they know that they're going to get the pressure losses of slow punctures, because that you're clipping the inside of the curb so much around here, at least in the dry. But it does look like that Smeets are actually able to take a lot of the curbs in these conditions with the Aston Martin. Without any issues. Also cutting that the S's quite a bit. I think that's on the limits of what you're allowed to do track limit wise. Smeets might be pushing those track limits. Just a reminder for people out there. The reason, or at least when you get the drive-through for track limits, that's because you have used your free warnings. You get the free warnings for track cuts, and then the fourth one, that will be an automatic drive-through penalty. And that's why we have seen a few of them this evening. I assume that most of the cuts around here in these conditions are in the S's, where you cut that a little bit too much and then don't lift. $25. I do think that Smeets might be catching a little bit to Vargas. If I was Vargas, I would probably take that pit stop soon. And even though that he don't get to drive with a low fuel for as long, then he would have the chance to actually defend the position on track. As Smeets seems to be flying out there at the minute. Sean Kaiser in 9th position in the McLaren. Discreet race for Cesar, we must say. We haven't seen much to him. Just hanging out there nicely in 9th. Big gap up to Ottelman and the group up there that have been battling further up the road, and quite the gap as well down to Grace behind in 10th. Seems somewhat secure in the top 10. He would, well, anything could still happen, but he would need somewhat of a large mistake, a medium-sized mistake for the cars behind to catch up, or at least to rapidly close the gap. and get them within fighting distance. Kyalami in 14, I think the car that we've seen the least of this evening. We haven't seen too many yellows because of Kyalami, which is a good thing, but I don't think that he have maybe the experience in these conditions around this track to really challenge for pace. But have been looking somewhat safe, at least on the track. One of those races that you somewhat want to forget when you're done with it, and then focus on the next one. Getting ready for that and getting the setups right and just mentally preparing to go racing again. Kyalami is one of the easier of the black Ferraris to note on track because it does have the red side mirrors and the red wing, or at least end plates on the wing, which does help out quite a bit here in the commentary shed. But maybe some colors would be lovely. "12 minutes to go. Gap in the lead down to 24 seconds. So we are getting to the point where it will be close when Vargas comes off the pitch. But I do think at this point that his meets are at least very, very close to being able to retake the position on track. But still masterful showing from Nick Vargas of strategy. Speaking of Vargas, here we see him a lap on Ottleman behind, and I think that will be Grasik as well, or Grisik. Yeah, well, it is Grisik, as we know that he have been left for quite a while. Ottleman actually catching back up to Grisik then in the battle for 7th. Still a little bit of a gap, but he is closing rapidly here with 11 minutes to go. On board with Ottleman, let's see how smooth he can drive this Aston Martin in these conditions. Not the worst car to have to be, that must be said, but let's see. Just a little bit of rear end sliding there in the long right-hander. Ooh, almost losing it there under braking. I think that's where we have seen a lot of the drivers coming across, using it under braking and then letting go and just steering straight over the grass, or the gravel we should say. Drive through for Schickerman, that will be track cuts. So Schickerman, even though we have had a great recovery race and getting up into 6th, you'll have to save that drive through, which he does immediately, but that will drop him behind Grisik and Ottleman and down into 8th for Schickerman. But Ottleman with the probably the best chance of overtaking here late on in the day. Closest battle on track at least, gap down below 1 second now. He will need to push hard to get it done. We have seen how quick Grisik can be in these conditions, so for Ottleman to catch up and actually get the overtake done as well, that will be quite the challenge with just 9 minutes on the clock. Running wide, they're getting almost cut there on the curb that pulls you wide in these conditions. It's so hard to get off those curbs. Same with the grass. If you are in a left-handed corner, push the left-hand side tire or left tires into the grass will just drag you out there to the wall. Through the Melbourne hairpin we go. I remember the first time driving this track, I tried to enter the pit lane from this side before the sausage hairpin. Highly recommend not doing that, as you'll be met by a barrier. Vargas have come into the pits to do his splash and dash. Let's see where he comes out. I do think at this point it's close to being behind Sim Smeets, as he's still stopped, though he does have the front pit box, and Smeets are coming down the start-finish straight now, and he passes with ease. Actually had to take more fuel than I thought. Nick Vargas, is he changing tires or something? He's really stopped there for a long time for refueling. That is very surprising. Why has he stopped so long? Ah, there might be a fixed pit stop time for refueling. I'm being told, and that would be why he was stopped for so long. Then tires definitely would have been worth it there, but Vargas comes out in second. Big gap. Yeah, there's a car there plowing off the infield. That was Gracis. Edvidas Gracis, I think that's how you pronounce it, at least close to, in the 77 Ferrari. With 7 minutes to go. I wonder if Vargas was aware of a minimum pit stop time. If he was, then it feels like the strategy was a bit strange. If not, then I really don't know why you'd be stopped for so long elsewise, but that must be the explanation. That all the tires had exploded underneath him. And only 10 seconds to von Liebenstein. With all the mistakes von Liebenstein have done in this race, he's not that far off of that P2 all of a sudden. Though catching up this late by 10 seconds will be quite the feat. Still the battle rages on between Ottleman and Grisik for 6th though. Can Ottleman do it? Not looking forward this time into the SS2, far behind. But what will happen through the SS? They have gone into the Melbourne hairpin, just showing a little bit of himself in the mirrors of Grisik. Takes the more inside line, does Ottleman. A little bit of power slide there on the exit hinders his acceleration into the sausage hairpin. Through the sausage hairpin we go, both of them on that inside line. If they could have taken the curb, if this was dry conditions, Alderman's line there would have been better, as he could have used all of the curb better, but not like this. Getting close under braking into turn 1 to each other, and now Grisik have a little bit of a gap that he got from Ottleman, trying to get up close and tight to Grisik there. It's definitely full push from Ottleman. We can see how he's really taking some chances with the curbs. And for a driver like Ottleman, that it doesn't matter if you're a 6th or 7th per se, but what does matter are that you have these good fun memories of overtaking and battling other people. And maybe potentially for a championship, that one position could come in handy later on or further down the road. Or down the racetrack, we should say. Haha, it's a racetrack joke, ish, or saying. Look how Ottleman takes that very tight line through the Melbourne hairpin. Also goes somewhat tight through Sausage. Less than 4 minutes to go. Should still be 2 to 3 laps for the race leader who have just crossed the line. And with lap times in the 1:35-ish area, then it will be about 3 laps more of racing this afternoon, or this evening we should say, as we have gone into the European evening, at least the real time. On track time it's only about to be half to midday. On board the hood of Roulette Ottleman, and let's see exactly what he's seeing from this this great view. Coming in close, not being able to take that more speed through the S's into the Melbourne hairpin. We have seen him being very good under braking, but yeah, we do see they brake roughly at the same time, but Ottleman still able to get a stop for the apex and not for Griesek. This time Ottleman goes a little bit too deep there through Sausage and gives Griesek a little bit of breathing room. 2 laps to go, we will assume at this point for these drivers. Oh, well, will be 2 laps for race leader as he comes across the line now. So it will be technically 3 for these guys, as they will be some of the last drivers to finish out the race when we get there. Ottleman once again getting close up behind the rear of Griesek. This could be an opportunity if he can get it done. Not, but the positioning there into the right hand of these onto the back straight, don't get it while you're trying that inside line there. Not close enough to go for the move, so why take the worst line onto a long straight? Losing himself a little bit of time there, or at least position, track position meters on the track, according to the car ahead. Griesek with the slightly more angled braking approach into to Melbourne than Ottleman. You can see that Ottleman doesn't use all of the track when he goes onto the acceleration out of the Melbourne hairpin. 2 laps to go for these drivers, as the race leader will round the Sausage hairpin and take the white flag this time around. Simsport in the bottom right hand frame, final lap for him. And everyone crossing the line behind him. The 144 car could potentially also oh, what am I speaking? Here's the 944 car that we see. This time Ottleman on the run. He does have it, it looks like, on the outside. He does take it with 2 laps to go. Ottleman steals away 6th position there from Griesek. Strong overtake. I was focusing a little bit on Simsport there, but while I was getting my eyes back, Ottleman into 6th. Can Griesek take it back with less than 2 laps, or will Ottleman just run away with it now? Maybe Griesek is struggling with fuel or something. It does look like that he have opened the gap by quite a lot there, have Ottleman. Can Griesek catch back up? It did look like that Griesek was under some braking troubles. Just before he hits that, waits for Ottleman. Nice sportsmanship there, the only thing to do really. Probably stay behind still, yes he does. As they're coming around, they still will have 1 more lap to go. I don't think Griesek will try it into turn 1 either, after that contact being a true gentleman. I think that was the decider in the race between these two Ottoman in 6th position. Simsport comes across the line to take first and wins here at a very, very wet Donnington. Schickerman in 8th. Patrick van der Linden into the pits for some reason late. Didn't take the flag though. Crossland took the flag in 15th position. But up here they are still going for it. Van der Linden in the pits. Kyalami takes the flag. Caesar takes the flag, still just waiting for Nick Vargas, who will be the next car across the line. Nick Vargas comes across to finish in 2nd, 32 seconds behind Simsport, who have looked so quick all day. Great driving there. Von Liebenstein, very, very good comeback. It didn't look too promising at points in this race, but Von Liebenstein comes home to steal the 3rd spot on the podium and rounds it off for the top 3 podium contenders. Cavaliotto in 4th position. First of the 2 Italians who have been locked into a lot of battling. Vianello comes around, will take 5th here at the wet Donnington. And now we're just waiting for Ottelman and Grisek to come across line, but at 4.5 seconds between them. I do think that it is decided. I do think Grisek might have run out of fuel or something since he's going so slow. But Ottelman across the line he goes. And Grisek comes rolling over. And that was a wonderful, wonderful Sunday evening of racing. Here at the Simsport Racing International channel. It is getting somewhat late. But we will just give people a hot minute or so to jump in and see what is going on, if they want to talk to us or not. I did promise you a race that was equally exciting, if not more, than the Bahrain GP, and boy oh boy, what a race it was. What a race it was. It really showed how much it meant not to make any mistakes in a race like this. And unfortunate for Engelhardt with the early drive-through for starting procedure infringement, I think it was. But as we are rounding off this evening, there's only one thing left to say. I have been Oliver Anderson, Mr. One of Oliver, and joining me in the behind the cameras was Grandpa Chris Hill, as always. We will see you in about a week's time, or at least there will probably be a race in about a week's time. I will not be here as it is Easter and I have Easter stuff to do. But hopefully there will be a replacement commentator. Nevertheless, have a wonderful evening and see you on the tracks.